Coin traders, what's going on? Thanks for joining me for another show. Going to look at Solana SOL on that ticker because we have had just an extreme tear over the last 3 weeks, as you can see in the current. So, a lot to talk about with Solana, especially since we have had the news now that Sam Bankman-Fried SBF has been found guilty on all of the charges. And there's technically another trial that could be scheduled for earlier in next year, but it might end up getting dropped just because he's going to get the book thrown at him so hard for all of these so far that we're speculating anyway, but potentially there could be some leniency just due to all of the political donations that he has contributed. Obviously, a lot of speculation, but nonetheless, I digress. So right now, just specifically want to talk about the weekly chart because after a huge tear and just a lot of upside mood in the current week, especially week over week, a very nice follow through. And even if we turn on the volume, you can see that very nice increase in a bullish volume week over week for Solana here. But we also know that we're looking at a lot of overhead resistance. But one of the great things that's actually happening right now with Solana is that we're starting to get this bullish cross on the exponential moving averages. So if we go ahead and zoom in on a little bit more over here, you can see that we're actually looking at the 12 coming up on the 26th. And then initially that would happen over the next few weeks, where we would finally see the 50 start to stabilize and actually go up. But obviously the 12 and 26 are going to cross sooner. So we already had a bullish cross between the 12 and the 26, and now the 12 and the 50 are almost going to intersect as well. So then the final stage of that will be the 50 followed by the 26 intersection. All the expectations are that that will play out over the next few weeks, though. So even if we do decide to retrace, that'd still be plenty of opportunity to actually pull back, kick off these exponential moving averages, and then confirm the next leg of the upside, which would kind of be a good sign for the longer term. And I'm not really sure if that will happen. I think probably what's most realistic right now is that price will actually probably stabilize in the area that it's at right now, between about 40 to 50 and even potentially down to about 35. And then that will actually allow these exponential moving averages to kick up before seeing a test. So I don't necessarily think that we're going to get a retracement and a pullback down to these levels, although that still wouldn't be out of the picture because we would have a very nice support level coming in right around the $27 line. So if we do look left, you can see big point of previous resistance, and then also flipping for support before the actual big FTX flash crash back about a year ago at the start of November in 2022. So the fact that we have just been stabilizing and slowly starting to rally over the last year is a very good bottoming indicator and signal. And not only for Solana, but for the rest of the crypto space as well, since we haven't really been seeing a lot of drastic selling pressure ever since our big sell-off last November. So especially now that you can see the gap tightening between all the exponential moving averages here, and then that's why the fact that on the weekly we're starting to get a bullish cross on these exponential moving averages is such a good and bullish sign. Because if we actually zoom out, you can see how right now that when we did have a bullish formation on the exponential moving averages, that's when we just saw the price continue to see path of least resistance to the upside. And then conversely as well, once we actually did lose these and we saw our bearish cross, we saw continued pressure to the downside. Meanwhile, this gap expanded until ultimately when we do like seeing is the gap between all of the exponential moving averages just to get really tight. And that's when we do know we're accumulating at the bottom. And that's when we do find our nice explosive moves to the upside. And that's when we do start getting a little bit more traction. So one thing to note now too, though, is that if we actually pull up the RSI Relative Strength Index, you can see that on this weekly, we're actually breaking now above the 70 line, which does put us into the overbought level. And so 2 days left on this weekly candle, still a bit left, but also we know that we have potential just to go way higher. So if we look at all of these rallies that Solana's done in the past, we know that they potentially get super high. So 90, we got to a high of 97 on the weekly, and then 86. So just because right now in the current week we're at 72 doesn't mean we can't go higher, especially when we do get that hype. But we are also coming out of a bear market, and this is the first time we've seen conditions like this ever since bottoming out and actually seeing oversold conditions back coming off of the last November FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried crash here. So now while we're zoomed out, we can look at several important levels because we have very big resistances up overhead, and we're going to have an actual big zone coming in because we actually have many points of relevant resistance from 42.64 all the way up to 48.08. And if we actually turn on VPVR, all the volume profile visible range, you can see that actually most of the volume, especially in recent times, is now to the downside, which is a good sign because right now we haven't seen a lot of trading history up overhead in this overall resistance zone. But obviously with overbought indications, we could get stuck up in this resistance zone before pulling back and then falling on some of this VPVR as some of those resistive points, or excuse me, supportive points rather. And so if we want to talk about some technical levels as well for support on this consolidation pullback, if we do in fact get that, then we're essentially looking at several big levels. Like we mentioned, we're looking at about 27, just under 28 as being one of the biggest levels. But in addition to that, up overhead at 32, almost the $33 level. So if we factor in this combined with the rollover of the exponential moving average, this would be a very nice support zone that I'm not really expecting Solana prices to get down below, especially after forming this very nice trend where we actually had one of our recent trend lows back in June, where we set our high, higher low, lower high, but higher low, and then now knew a higher high on this weekly. So now flipping over into the daily chart, got volume still on. You can just see the amount of volume here on the upside move. And this is very topping indication signal here, especially with such a big upper wick on this candle. And so now with less than an hour to close, you can see that we are going to be getting decreasing bearish volume. And I do expect that to actually start to play out in either a flag type pattern or a pennant type consolidation. Because typically in shorts like this where we do see a peak volume, we're going to see the peak bearish volume come in right off of the peak high. So that does mean the most amount of selling pressure. And because we actually haven't really seen that much, and in fact, we're actually getting inside bars on the following bearish day. Now, right now, we did break that with setting a new lower low on the daily. But just based off the size of the bodies, you can see that we're not really getting that much actual reversal topping indication, which does mean most likely that we are shaping up for a little bit more consolidation pattern to play out, especially as we do expect these volumes to be falling. And even turning on the daily RSI, you can see how we are and have been overbought for a long time. And that's why this isn't necessarily such a sign of a reversal coming. But ultimately, we can actually consolidate, which will allow this RSI to retrace back below the 70 line. And so because there's no immediate sign of a top out and a reversal happening just yet, the expectation of this returning to normal selling buying levels, along with a consolidation pattern playing out, which would match up with these exponential moving averages, does play out for a lot more upside directional movement for the bulls. So over the last couple of weeks, just solid, consistent upside gains. And in fact, if we actually look at from where the swing low came in to the 12th of October, up to the high over 121%, to the close, we're looking at 95%. And that's about 21 days, so 3 weeks effectively of just solid upside. Just kind of like what we were seeing on the weekly chart. And so we know that a slowdown in the upside direction is coming and pretty much already been confirmed that it's here. And so that's why over the coming week, we're actually expecting a little bit more slowdown to play out because we could see a week or two of just sideways trading, longer term accumulation on top of some of these previous resistances that are now going to be confirming as future support levels. So huge congrats to all of the Solana bulls and everyone with a long Solana position right now. A lot of great things. And obviously this is a good sign for the rest of the altcoin market as well, because we do have Solana as one of the leading names. So I do expect a lot of the other altcoins to continue and maybe even not necessarily see as much upside gain, but definitely start to reflect this in the chart patterns as well and across the rest of the crypto space. So would love to hear everyone's thoughts down in the comment sections below. And if you're not following me currently over on Twitter or X, at @coin_trades is the handle over there. Looking forward to chatting with everyone over on Twitter or X. That is going to wrap it up for now, though. So please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. Do appreciate all the continued love and support. As always, means so much. Stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.